Welcome back to the Octave Leap podcast. Today, we have a very, very important episode if you follow human design, because according to today's guest, there's something that Ra had missed. Now, this is not just anybody saying this. This is somebody who has studied human design for a very long time. She has not only studied human design, but she was also instrumental in bringing human design to the Netherlands, and she actually taught me initially human design. So this is somebody who's very near and dear to my heart, and somebody who knows the system well enough to be able to speak into some of the improvements or innovations that could be made to it. And I'd like to present today's guest as Lee Issings. Lee, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm in Mexico right now, and I guess you could say living my design. um,
Which design?
yeah, exactly. Which design? That's the conversation now. Is it tropical? Is it true sidereal? Well, I live both, to be honest. The reflector part of me likes taking long evening strolls under the moon. Really enjoys that part, and the generator part of me likes to get down to business and likes to make things happen out there in the world and keep really busy.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you believe in types?
Do I believe in types? Well, that's a trick question from you. I know that because we've talked a lot about this and a lot about
Yes.
types. And guess what? Types is not the most important thing out there, right? If you go back to the source material, I think he's talking about something else. I think types was a convenient packaging when the system reached a certain size and wanted to appeal to a broader audience. Am I correct?
Yes, it is largely marketing. Well, actually, the what how he started to define the types, right? He defined it as four types, and so he moved away from to do and to wait,
Hmm.
which was basically the original instruction of the voice.
Hmm.
But he had it statistically researched, and the lady Eleanor Haspel-Portner, she actually found a fifth, and that was the manifesting generator.
Hmm.
So because the manifesting generator has a connection from a motor to the throat.
Right.
But before he went into the types, actually there was no mention of motors.
Hmm.
So this is the thing, and of course it is everybody's right to develop to develop the system like we are doing as well, right?
Hmm.
So you work on it, and that is the freedom that he said in the beginning, that it is for everyone. It is not his work. It later became his work because he needed to earn money.
Okay. Yes,
And
we've
he
talked about this a
and,
lot.
and right, and of course, and that is his good right, because he was seeing that a lot of people who had just followed a few classes were giving consultations and earning money, and he had nothing.
Hmm.
So okay, right. So and then it develops, and you know how it goes. The moment you get people around you, and they sort of see you as the guru, huh? As the teacher, even if he didn't want it to be that. He is also aligned. He's a 5-1 profile, so there is always this projection of expectations that others have on you, right? So
Right. And not to mention in the 64 Ways of Money, he says straight up, he's like, and if you've got an open ajna center, it's like you're going to be the people who likes to buy concepts, and you want to go deeper with the concepts. And I've got concepts to sell you, and his way of being. It's like,
exactly.
and that's why I just make more and more and more to make you happy, and you just keep buying. And they're sitting there nodding, and at the same time he's admitting to what he's doing basically. And I mean, it's fine. It's fine if you want to do that, but I think at some point it got so complex. And if you look at the human design community today, there's so much complexity and it's so intellectualized and cerebral. And I think people are getting twisted out of shape on these tangents basically. And they're going into these little tangent avenues and they're getting wrapped up around these little things, but they miss the actual fundamentals. And
Yes.
also too, and what you said when we chatted about at the beginning of this is that there was one piece of the fundamentals that Ra potentially had even missed.
Yes. Well, and I think it is because when he received it, actually there were more people in the area who received something, but only received, for example, the bodygraph, but didn't go as far as the I-Ching. So the most important part of the whole human design system is the I-Ching. It's of
Hmm.
course the bodygraph and the projection of the I Ching to make it to embody, be able to embody it,
Mhm.
right? And but he got very afraid of this knowledge. He didn't want it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. And then he asked everyone to destroy the readings that he had been doing with the bodygraphs that he made. And then a year later or so, a Dutch lady who actually was instrumental in getting human design to the Netherlands. It's not me at all. But so there was a big German and Dutch connection around him already from the beginning. So she came back with the bodygraph that she didn't follow his instruction to destroy it. And then he started to to get or yeah, how do you say, to retrieve the information, to uh, go backwards, right? And at that time, he was in the beginning he was so afraid of it that he destroyed it. Um, when you receive some knowledge, but there is fear around it, how much of that fear is being put into the knowledge that you are trying to retrieve?
Oh my God. You wouldn't believe. So I have one video on YouTube. It's got about 13,000 views, and it's the story with the voice that yeah, I think you've seen that. And
Yes.
I just put it up there for fun. Like, it's just like, at the time I was watching a lot of his videos, and I had actually spoken to somebody who had helped film that, and they told me another side of the story. It was very interesting. And basically, that was the thing that I encountered in there, was that I put in there that he was afraid and he burned all the initial material. And then now I've got comments of people saying he didn't burn the material. And that never happened. And like
He
because
destroyed it. He might not have burned it, but he
right, but
destroyed it.
destroyed it. And um, the thing though is you're right, is that there's a inability for people to understand that the messenger has to translate something impeccably for it to be
Yes.
correct. And if
Yes.
they impregnate that translation or that transmission with their own fear, with their own projections, with
Mhm.
their own greed, with their own lesser emotions, and let's face it, most human beings have these running, even if they're given, the holy transmission, they still
Mhm.
have these patterns running in them. So the thing that actually
Right.
gets recorded and actually gets promoted afterwards, it's going to be a byproduct of the original transmission
Yeah.
and then their own emotional overlays. And if
Exactly. Which is
I think you and
human.
I see this pretty clearly, but a lot of people don't, and they go back to the original material and they say this is gospel truth.
Yes. Well, if it depends on which material they go back to. If they go back to the Black Book, there is there's a lot of honesty in there, and even in the White Book, there's this honesty. He is talking about um, some of the basis of the I Ching, but the
Hmm.
basis of the I Ching is the Tao, right? And the Tao is it's non it's a cosmology, and it is the concept of universal energy from which all things emanate.
And just
So
for people who may be hearing the word Tao for the first time,
yeah.
um, is this associated with Taoism in traditional Chinese, medicine, traditional Chinese wisdom, or is this something else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is. So Tao. It's a transliteration in the pidgin Chinese. You might pronounce it as Dao.
Mm.
And so, but it's a difference between the pronunciation of the D and the T. So, but there is a form of Taoism that is more religious. But the Tao in itself is not a deity. There's no
Mm.
deity. It is the universal force.
So similar to one studying Kabbalah versus one that belongs to the Jewish religion.
Oh
Similar?
yes, it's a
Okay.
huge difference. A huge difference.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yeah. But the Taoist cosmology that it was like goes back 5,000 years. And it's this really the concept that there is a universal energy from which all things come forth. So it is featureless. It is an empty void that generates this a swirling pattern, or you would say a spiral of energy that they call chi or ki.
Mm.
Ki
Mhm.
in Japanese, chi in Chinese,
Yeah.
and in from this energy, there is a separation in of no dual forces of yin and yang.
Right.
And the force between yin and yang creates the universe.
That's exactly what my own research has led me to. And I'm doing a series on this, The Mechanics of Reality, where that
Mm-hmm.
primal layer, that base layer of all is like a quantum layer of nothingness. And then the
Yes,
next layer down from that is basically the two polarities and a reconciling force between the two. So it's where we
yes,
get this concept of the Trinity from in, Western spirituality and Western mysticism, but Eastern, philosophies also have this as well. So that goes to show me the universality of this concept that the base layer of creation is
mm-hmm.
actually polarity in motion.
Exactly, and it is always emotion. So the assumption that what Ra said that everything there's no choice and basically everything is the same, stays the same, is it has nothing to do with the I-Ching, right? That everything changes all the time.
Mhm.
And so this is where I would say, yeah, he missed an essential part and made it more final, more strict, more unmovable, more, dare I say it, masculine.
I think
And
you could say that. I think a lot of people have recognized that human design is a very masculine, deterministic system.
right, and it is and it is so enclosed, which is basically it's so bordered, right? So this is your body graph, and this is what you can do with it. But the body graph itself, the energy in itself, is moving. So
Mhm.
the chi, the chi, say the direction of the chi, the intention of the chi. Do you feel well? Do you want to have? Forms the organs, gives your blood, right? And it feeds you. So if you feed it with a certain emotion or with a certain projection, you will change in the end. It's a long process, but you can change the shape. You can change.
Mm.
That's the whole idea of the art of shapeshifters. If you believe in that,
Yeah.
it's a
Well, I think that's why the gene keys had its appeal, right? Because,
yeah,
the gene keys, by the way, the concept that Richard Rudd has of the shadow, the gift, and the transcendental qualities, that existed much earlier. That came from evolutionary astrology. Evolutionary astrology has the exact same bandwidths that was established decades before, right?
wow,
And the other thing that I've correlated with is also in um, spiritual traditions, or I should say Gnosticism is really what I've studied through Gurdjieff and my own investigations into Freemasonry. But we have sort of the body, mind, intellect, the human biological instrument. And if your consciousness is locked solely in that, which most of society is, you live in the shadow. When you start to
yeah,
access your subtle bodies, your energetic bodies, you move into the gift because you start to move into these higher functionings. But at some level,
mhm,
when you reconnect with the source and you're moved by the source, that's where you start hitting the transcendental layers of reality. So it's sort of like there is a three stages of operating, you could say. And that's the,
yes,
the three stages of basically getting out of the ego. You could also look at it as and returning to an open loop with all of life. And that part was very beautiful because we can see now the challenged parts of some of these gene expressions or some of these gate expressions. And then we
Mhm.
see how they blossom into a wonderful gift. And then they, erupt into this transcendental quality that is just, it's so rapturous in a way.
Yeah.
However, I have big problems with the gene keys because when I look at the underlying mechanics from which they're calculated, Richard Rudd misses some of the most significant astrological placements.
Mm.
First of all, there's no personality moon, which is like blows my
Which is
mind.
great. That's crazy.
I know there's no personality moon, which is your moon in your astrological chart. There's no Saturn at all, and in
Which
Joitish,
is very important in this life.
in Joitish they say if you want to live a happy life, you figure out your Saturn and you make it
Right.
happy. If you want to
Yes.
live so to exclude that altogether blows my mind. And now people are sitting here looking at their IQ and their EQ, which is like your design Mercury, giving more credence to that than to Saturn or the North Node. The nodes are not even present at all. And so I don't think you can have a complete discussion of the totality of the human experience without bringing in these other planets, which is why I've gone ahead and I've added these back in my own investigations, and they prove to be much more significant for people. So that's my
Right.
little spiel there. So I guess in this episode, we're saying what human design is missing and what the gene keys is missing as well.
Yeah, well, the changes has its merit. There's one thing. So if you look at yin and yang, and if you look at the qi, there is the whole Tao is described as the way, but from and the qi is the vital energy and the dynamic force, and then you have the yin and yang, the principles. They are complementary and antagonistic.
Mm.
Yeah? But it is so they complement each other. They cannot do without each other. Right? That is so. So to talk about shadow is probably too harsh, right? Because the one so what is the opposite of the shadow, right? Is that in the gene keys is that your what is it your
Gift?
your genie, no, what's it called? Your
City?
genie, your city, right? It's your city, and but basically they always coexist.
Mm.
So and they are and it moves around. So sometimes it's a little bit more city, sometimes or more yin, sometimes it's a little bit more yang, sometimes it's so we have to be very careful, especially at this time and age, to to uh, make it sound absolute, right?
Mm.
So it is all in the wording. It is all in how you coach and how you bring. And I've seen you doing it, and I've seen Alison, for example, doing it, and you are able to not make it judgmental because yin and yang, the balance is not judgmental. It's just what it is,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so, but that is not just what that is one of my problems with human design is that it is so um, it's so absolute.
Mhm.
This is what it is, right? No choice. You have to live with it for the rest of your life. And
Yeah.
that is simply not true. That is not how energy works.
And then you see people excusing themselves or victimizing themselves with
Yeah,
that because then they feel they're mechanical and they're on a very specific track and they can only experience life in certain ways.
right. And yeah, and yin and yang is yin is the earth, for example, and yang is in the cosmology is the heavens,
Hmm.
right? So and you need both, right? And you cannot say that earth is better than heaven or heaven is better than earth.
No, I know. I mean, if you look at the two pathways, the yin pathway is the embodiment pathway, right? It's coming into form more and more. It's loving the form. It's loving the pleasures of the world and finding comfort in being here. And then the yang is more of the ascension pathway, right? And so if we look at spiritual practices, one is coming into your body more, loving your body, loving the comforts around you, loving the world. I shouldn't say comforts, but loving the things around you, actually having a good relationship to every part of your life. And the other is about overcoming challenges and, asceticism sometimes. And there's merit to both of them. But I feel like both of them have their time and place, and that we're going to dance as human beings between one pathway and
Right.
the other.
But yin, for example, yin is more passive and
Mm-hmm.
yang is more active,
Mm.
right? Yin is more feminine. The yang is more masculine, and in that sense, right, uh, you always will have you have a dynamics between activity and passivity, and it depends on your energy at that time. How are you feeling?
Mm.
What is your emotion? Because we create our balance between yin and yang. We create every moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it is also a conscious decision. If you want to be a co-creator on Earth, then you go to look at being a little bit more laid back, and use the understanding of nature,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to go into more the what you said, the spiritual realms, the you are looking at becoming more lighter, not in you a little bit lighter, but at the same time have very subtle activity.
Mm.
But like explosive activity is more yang,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's really, and say your longer muscles, everything that you need, you don't need the explosion in your body for it. It's more yin,
Mm.
right? So that is also why they associate yin with the more feminine in the body. It is because it's less bulky with
Mm-hmm.
muscles. So
Mm.
unless you are like a weightlifter or so, bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then from the yin and yang, there comes the I-Ching, and the I-Ching, at the same time, the I-Ching is more the, how do you say it's very cryptic in a way,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is not very clear, so it was also used to give direction to the leaders, to the people who had something to say. But it's also an inner guidance. So when you read the I Ching, it gives you an energy.
I think it's important to note too that the I Ching is basically a mathematical formula.
Mhm.
It's 2 to the power of 6, basically, because there's
Yeah.
6 lines, and each
Yes.
line can either be a yin line or a yang line. That's it.
Yeah.
And the first hexagram in the I Ching is pure masculine, this pure
Yeah.
yang. The second
Yeah.
hexagram is pure yin. The
Yeah.
last two are basically yang yin, yang yin, yang yin, and yin
Yes.
yang yin. So it's basically the whole story, if you look at it as bookends, is pure masculine or pure yang, pure yin, and then the last two are two different full blends of both of them. And everything in
Right.
between is basically the mixture, the evolution of that energy together. And so
Right.
the whole story is just telling basically different configurations of the yin and the yang throughout this story of 6 hexagrams, or 6 lines, sorry, for 64 hexagrams.
Yeah. The universe is mathematical.
Mm.
That
Mm.
is, I mean, that is that. So if you look at the universe and the spiral, and how it even how it arrives in the body, how it builds the body. Yeah, you look at the ear, for
Mm.
example. Look at the vortex of the heart, right? And so So that energy, that spiralic energy, is, I think it is like the golden
Golden ratio.
golden ratio. And so, and I had a Kabbalah teacher who said also that numbers are in the universe. The universe understands also arrays of numbers,
Well, did you
right?
know? I'm reading a book. It's right here, actually. This one by Greg Braden.
Yes, that is a brilliant book. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And so he says our DNA is you can take words and numbers encoded into
Yeah.
our DNA. That message is then passed down through every generation. And there's
Yes.
one code in our DNA, one code that is ubiquitous throughout all human beings. It's from the Hebrew language, and it's
Mhm.
basically God eternal in human form. And
Yes.
the chance of that just happening to be there is something like 1 in 250,000. So a very, very minuscule percent chance, but it's there. And
Yes.
the way that they arrived at that was through the molecules that make up the DNA nucleotides are
Yeah.
hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. And the different quantities of these, basically, if you reduce them to gematria, which is the Kabbalistic numerology system, that's what you get. And so it's a
Yes.
little bit of a stretch in a way. But if you look at some of the old stories and old tales, and if you talk about genetic manipulation and that type of thing that may have happened, or humans not, this is actually starting to come out more and more now, is that
Yeah.
they don't match the profile of evolution. There's a real
Exactly.
gap in evolution,
Yeah.
which is speculated to be some sort of a genetic intervention by some sort of higher intelligence. And
Yeah.
then they end up with this coding that's in Hebrew. And Hebrew forms one of the four base languages on this planet. Hebrew,
Mhm.
Aramaic, cuneiform, and Sanskrit basically are the four
Yeah.
base languages on the planet. So this we are operating according to numbers. Now we have emotions and that stuff, but this is numbers depict the way that things evolve, and it does get
Yeah.
complicated because there's so many different processes in play in our life, and that's where our heart and our intuition come into play to help us navigate which ones are the most important ones for each of us to focus on.
Right.
And
Right.
but to become intuitive, I think we can use systems like human design, or whatever your chosen system is. We happen to like human design over here, to understand yourself better, to start making decisions better for yourself based
Yes.
on what your specific blueprint as a unique human being needs to do and needs to know in this life.
Exactly. And it goes a little bit further when you look when you look at the I-Ching. The I-Ching goes along. It and the five elements, or the five phases, belong together. And the five elements, and the Wuxing, uh, I forget how to pronounce it all the time. It's wood, fire, earth, metal, and water.
Hmm.
And these phases they represent different aspects of nature and are interconnected in a cyclical relationship. So they influence the seasons, the elements, the natural world. They influence your emotions. They influence um, your 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 health. They govern your meridians, or your
Is,
organs.
is this what Ra was talking about when he talks about the bantois and he talks about the bases? Is that,
Yeah,
but
no, it's not. I've tried to decipher it, but it is not the same. Or when it is, he has so overcomplicated it
but
that
what,
it
what I mean
becomes.
is that what you're saying is the simple fundamental basis, because he talks about the base being the absolute foundation of all things, and you read it and you're like you don't understand it, and it just gets so
Exactly.
complicated, and nobody really understands base theory, and if they do, they're like, it's too complicated to tell you what it is. But are you saying that what he was really pointing at was this fact that there's these five elements that underlie all life?
Yes, I
Okay.
I, I hope so. I just because actually the five elements allow your hexagram, your each hexagram, and in human
Hmm.
design it is translated into a gate.
Mm.
Um, it governs everything. So the five elements tell you exactly what you can do to strengthen it, what you can do to soften it, what you can do to break through barriers, what you can do with the emotional part of it, what you can do with the physical, but also the energetic part of it. But it has to do a lot with emotions. So and that for example links again with the work of Greg Braden or Candice Pert that had the molecules of emotions.
Mm.
It links back to the Hawkins scale, right? It is so you can once you understand which element governs you overall and which element governs your gates. You can
Mm.
also work with the hanging gates. You can also work with the gates that are completely that have no definition, right? So it is all there to bring yourself back into harmony and to bring nature back within you or bring the universe back in you, right? And it's
Mm.
so the basis also of acupuncture. If you look at it, there is also a five element acupuncture that was developed in the UK, which is very very powerful. And there is a five element yoga that you can do. It's so if you look at what he missed is the essential quality of each hexagram.
Mm.
So the quality is not necessarily in the lines in the line itself, but it is in the whole, in what it represents in the five phases of nature.
Mm. Hmm. So if we start looking at the gates and our body graph and our design with the five elements in mind, we're going to get a completely different perspective on how
Yes,
we work that's more in alignment with nature, more in alignment
yes,
with our cosmic nature, and basically how the universe functions.
and it is very practical,
Hmm.
and it is not prescriptive. It is not a diet. It is not it's not. You have to take this or this supplement or whatever, right? It is, or you have to do this or that, or you have to say this and this mantra, or you have to, or affirm this and that, right? It is completely if you understand. For instance, if it is, if the element is wood, then you can wood, for example, has it's the energy of new life, of a tree growing, right? There is a sound to it. You can work with sounds, and the sound and the sound is more shouting. The wind, it is a little bit loud. Sometimes it can overpower, but it is also calling out,
Mm.
right? And so there is this whole inter way you can work with it. You can work with, of course, also you can work with food. But if you are, if you want to, for example, you want to be, say, you are, let me say, you are grieving. Grieving is metal, right? It's that is the emotion that belongs to metal in um, when it is not in harmony, when it is not in balance. So it's like a stagnant grief that you know is there, but you can't get it out. Now, so what can you do? You can add the controlling element, which is fire, and fire is all about bringing joy and warmth in your life. Yeah, it's fire is summer, right? So the joy of summer, the joy of 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 being alive, being free, not having heavy clothes on, uh, right? Being able to walk out of the door without taking your raincoat or whatever. Well, now the seasons are changing a little bit, but it is also the warmth. It is also cooking food over fire. It's also about that type of warmth,
Mm,
having warm food within in you, and that will allow the grief to move out.
mm,
So I don't know. Um, you can also work with the emotions. So, if there's an imbalance for instance, you have anxiety, it means you have an imbalance in fire.
mm,
So then you need to nourish the element that comes after it, that it had a cycle, and that is earth. So
mhm,
that is late summer, or Indian summer.
mhm,
And so you are looking at round round vegetables. You're looking at earthing, eh, rooting your feet in the sand, for example. So then you move from anxiety to to I would almost say to feeling content,
mm,
right? So you are okay at that moment. That the cause of your anxiety might still be there, but you are okay with it. So that is the way how you can work with your emotions.
mm,
For example, so there's a lot of ways of working with the five elements, and this is just experimental. It's just seeing, doing it. You can use it in coaching. You can, as a coach, you can use it. But again, it has to flow. So it is not. And now you are going to eat ground round veggies, and you're going to earth and do earthing, and so it's not like that. There's always a choice, as long as you understand the mechanism, as long as you understand the elements.
mm. It's interesting because, recently I started to work with the Zen cleanse, which is based in
Hmm.
the five elements. And they have a very
Yes.
simple approach to detoxifying the body. You start with
Yeah.
the gut, which is the earth, and you clean out your colon. And then you move on to the
Hmm.
liver, which is fire. Sorry, liver's wood, right? Yeah,
Wood
liver.
is wood.
Yeah, yeah. Liver's wood. And then you move on to the lungs, which is metal, right?
With metal. Yeah.
Yep. And then after that, it's the kidneys and then the blood. And so you go in that
Right.
order. Um,
Yes.
and it makes a lot of sense when I read the underlying philosophy behind it. And I've started to try this out, and I'm like, wow, my body's responding very beautifully to this, rather than the haphazard. Oh, I'm going to do a liver cleanse now. I don't know why, or I'm going to cleanse my kidneys. Like sometimes people just get on these trends, but they're not really following a flow that is lawful, a lawful flow, basically. And it sounds
Yeah.
like with this, there is a lawful flow, but there's also breath in there that makes it spacious and allows you to really experience it without these hard, rigid, you know, protocols that need to be followed.
Right. Right. So, and that is what the workshop will be all about. It is really getting to know the elements in depth.
Workshop. There's a workshop, Leah?
Uh, don't tell it to anyone, right? We
Yeah,
keep
okay.
it to ourselves.
Yeah. Basically,
No,
I'll just say the cat's out of the bag now. Well, Lee and I
this
are
is
putting on a workshop on May 19th and 20th on this stuff. So she's going to show and share a very simple approach to human design that incorporates this isn't just a concept. This is like a completely innovative revolution in the system, really. Like this has the potential to go somewhere because what's currently being used to assess health and well-being in human design isn't working. Am I correct in saying that?
exactly. It's the
The
it's
PHF
stretching.
system, yeah, which says if you want to eat, mine is like eat in a noisy space, and it's like, okay, well, I'll go to a bar then, and I'm not feeling any healthier. Like
No,
it seems very vague and angular, and
he
it doesn't really add. I don't feel like the PHS system really
he
adds anything.
also said in a few times, um, when you go through his courses, his trainings, he also says that he basically doesn't know anything about diet,
Mm,
right? And that is why the teachers who have known him since the late 90s or early 90s are actually not doing PHS, or at least not a diet.
mm,
Environment is another thing, right? So because that can be very practical, but again, environment is also the people you associate with. It's also your human environment. It's not just where you live, right? So
mm,
it's way deeper. And then he was a brilliant. First of all, he was a scientist. I mean, he's very intelligent, but he also was a salesman
hmm.
or a marketeer. Let me say that way.
No, I mean that's
And
what his career was in, right?
right, and so you know, you and I know this as well. So, if somebody comes to you and has a specific question or wants to know something, and it can trigger something in you. Yeah, and but that answer that you are giving to that person is is for that person alone. You cannot generalize it
Hmm.
unless you are noticing a pattern, right? And then you can start to generalize this.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and
it
I
is
mean
more.
that's I think the biggest problem with social media therapy these days, where people post intelligent sounding things on social media and they're kind of presented to the world that this is the way that things must be. I've ignored all of that, but if somebody's charismatic, other people take that advice and they think it's applicable to them and then they get bent out of shape over it. Whereas in truth,
Yes.
actually you have a very personal, unique signature. And some people
Yes.
figure this out for themselves without anything, and that's great. But as a
Hmm.
species, we have been so conditioned into not trusting ourselves that it's helpful to
Right.
have something that gives ourselves permission to slowly start trusting ourselves again.
Yeah.
Exploration or an experimental process for us to say, hey, does this work for me or not?
Exactly. And it's so human design as description of form. Yeah, and basically he uses the word form. Yeah, it is the science of forms. Is great, right? It's because that is what it is. Um, but and so it is more like your soul in a vehicle. The vehicle is the form, right? So, but the soul has a beautiful way to express itself. At different times, it will be a different expression, and it can change every day. It's your cosmic song in your body, right? And but that is always developing, always growing, so it cannot be constant, right? But if you understand the movement of the universe, if you understand how this spiral works, how it is expressed in nature, and there's
Mm,
the pattern of the spiral is everywhere. Um, and you understand the stages, the phases of nature, which is expressed in the five elements, and the mathematical um, description of the various energies accumulated in the hexagrams. You have something that is uniquely you. There is no other one, no other person that has your cosmic song.
mm,
That frequency, and it can, of course, you, probably a lot of people can't hear the difference, right? And if I'm born and somebody in Australia is born at the same second, we basically should have the same human design, but it probably is slightly different,
mm,
slightly different. But we have a choice in that. How do we express all these all the frequencies from the planets. There we have a choice
Hmm.
because it's not just one thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, when identical twins are born and they have essentially the same birth chart,
Yeah,
but they develop in two different ways, it's because they're both singing that song differently,
yeah,
even though they're encoded with the same genetics and they're encoded with the same astrological components.
right.
There's a different expression of that, right? It's sort of like the way I think of it is like pinball, that
Yeah,
game. It's like you
yes,
drop the ball, but it's just probability of where it's going to go down, right?
exactly.
And so, certain events are going to happen, and each individual is going to make a slightly different decision at a different time, or the circumstances will be different. And as a result of that, the outcome will be different and will shape them differently. So one could
Yeah.
say that there's a essential nature that is similar or very, very similar, but the circumstances and the conditioning is different, and therefore the expression is going to be different between these two individuals.
Yes,
Hmm.
my nieces are identical twins,
Hmm.
and they are born a few minutes apart.
Hmm.
So even in the deeper layers, probably in the base, there is a difference because that can change every few seconds. But and they are also mirror twins. So the one has everything on the left, the other one has everything on the right, right?
Hmm.
So I can distinguish their voices. Right? Now they are older and get their own styles. I can of course see more of the difference. But they used to trick me with the glasses, right? So because was the only way how I would be able to recognize. But they are completely different,
Hmm. Hmm.
and yet the same. There you see that they grew up that they developed in the womb of one mother, right? And so they got the same input, but what they do with it is different, and they understand each other in a way that Ra describes of the raves, right? There's it's unspoken,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it is so. And I try to look, and then only when I look deeper in their design is it okay. This can also mean this, and this can also mean that, and then you sit with them, and then they recognize it, right? And so I let them decide what works for them. If this channel has this expression, but also another expression.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there is choice.
There
Yeah,
is
and
choice, yeah. And everybody has a choice. So that's the discussion settled. It's not no
yes,
choice. Everybody has a choice in the expression.
not no choice, and
Mhm.
we what we are going to add in the with the elements is something that I believe Ra missed. It was the basic understanding of the order of the universe.
Okay.
To
So
say it
this
like
is the
that.
exciting part. Is there something practical we can do to show people what can be done with this or how they can start applying this deeper knowledge to their lives based on the five elements?
Right. So the five elements. Well, that would be in the workshop, but so what? There is something that they don't really teach in human design, although it is there because I was taught it. But it is more something they would teach in the PHS, in the health, the primary health system. And you have the slides, so you can put them up
Okay.
if that's okay for you. Back on.
So basically, we're not talking about PHS here, which is the more advanced facet of the human design system. We're talking about something else.
Well, yes, here it is. Well, this is what I've experienced when with all the consultations that I've been giving, all the readings that I've been giving over the years. The decision making strategy is too generic. It's very difficult for people to have. But if you, in everything that you do, in all the choices that you make, it doesn't matter for what, right? It doesn't have to be a huge decision that you're making. But if you are going to look at um, the way you move your energy in your body. How do you get your energy in your body moving so that you get clarity?
Okay.
And that is what it is. And that is the beauty that is in the next slide. So that is the line in your design. So in the red. So it is
Mm.
your sun and earth line.
Okay.
So I have the line. So here's the line one. You have line one. I have line one. So we need to move in principle, but that's the neck. But in order to get the energy flowing, we need to do something to move.
Mm-hmm.
So and in order also to break through blockages, to give the body balance, right? And that's the basis of yin and yang. So it is the energy flow of this line of the hexagram that you have is you can use it for making decisions. You can apply it when you need to break through your blockages. You use it to regulate your nervous system, which is very important, and you use it to being able to listen to your own intuition and what you really want or need to do. So this is also about the power to say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
This is not listening to your sacral. The
Mm-hmm.
sacral is very silent, but the decisions are being made from clarity. And how do you get clarity? And that is move your energy.
So if I have a line one in my
Yes,
red
that's the next
sun, my
slide.
design sun, okay, then I'm
Yeah,
going to want to follow this.
exactly.
Your physical structures should be ideally flexible while at the same time provide stability. You will always research the movement of your choice and become an expert. Full body exercise such as walking, swimming, jogging, yoga, tai chi, qigong, etc. You relax when your full body is engaged and moving. Move in small installments during the day and treat yourself to regular massages, including osteopathy or physiotherapy. It's funny because yesterday I did a lot. Like I said, okay, I'm actually just going to take a full day off and just be out doing things. And so I
Yeah.
started with ecstatic dance in the morning. And then
Mm-hmm.
I went to the beach and went swimming. And then
Mm-hmm.
in the evening, I hiked down a desert valley and I came back up again. So I did basically outdoors moving. And by the end of yesterday, I was just like, wow, like I feel very clear. I feel very much in my energy. I feel like I've really done a lot of great stuff today.
Yeah.
And my body was happy. All the tension had just melted away. In fact, I woke up
Great.
a little bit sore today, actually, from all the like.
Now you need a massage.
Now I need the massage, exactly.
Yeah, or osteopathy or something, to get your structure in balance again. But that is typical for line one. So when I
Mm.
need to solve something, I go walking. It doesn't matter. I can walk in the rain. I can walk through the streets of the city here. It doesn't really matter,
That's so
right?
funny because that's what I always do. If I'm ever stuck, I stop working and I'll go for a long walk. And then by the end of the walk, I'll have new clarity on how to approach that particular issue.
Yes.
It's so fascinating that that's the way, you know.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then you have the line, and for line one, it is also the study, right? It is the line one. It's the one who's sitting in the basement and learning everything about the movement or anything, right?
That's
So
where
in
I go
line
out and I
two,
get a bunch of textbooks on how to walk properly, right?
or you hire an expert, yes,
A walking expert. Okay. A
a
walking
walking
coach.
expert. No, it's probably when you do like things like Tai Chi or Qigong or so.
Right,
That's
yeah. Yeah. Or yoga, yeah.
be that.
These are deep
But
bodies of wisdom.
you might have been looking at what are the benefits of walking, right? What is it doing for me? What is the heart rate? What is how do
Oh,
I?
it's funny that you say that because I started to do this thing where I track how many steps I take in a day and I
Uh-huh.
correlate that with how I feel. And then I look at the trends of that over weeks and months. It's actually quite technical, even though it's
Hmm.
just walking and walking at different times of day, walking in different environments. But they're
Right.
mostly investigations that I do myself versus, yeah, I guess that is research. That is research, right? When you
That is
investigate it, you
research.
say, yeah.
That is also looking for patterns.
Yeah, so it's not just a casual walk; it's a walk with a lot of observations about things as well.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
All right. Shall we move on to
So
line
then,
two?
and then you have the line two, which is in human design, it's the natural, right? It's somebody who really needs to be on itself to get their energy moving again because they do everything so naturally. But they have to have this an upright internal position, but also an upright external. That's so a physical posture. So it's also about flexibility in the whole spinal area, in your shoulders, in your hips, in the spine. It is in the neck. So there is it's all about this this the ability to have your energy flow through your spine. And it's not stuck in anything in the structure that is connected to your spine.
Mm.
And so it is because it's natural. The natural receives information in a way that they don't understand themselves, and it has to come out of it. And information basically comes through the coccyx and moves up.
Wow.
And because we have connection points to the earth,
Mhm.
right? We have heaven and earth, and so it comes from the feet, and it moves in principle moves it up to the hips, right?
Mm.
To the groin and to the hips, but also through the coccyx.
Gotcha.
And this is one of the most important things that I don't think I have it here, but for a line two, it would be really good to have craniosacral from an expert who can also adjust the coccyx.
Mm. Wow. Okay. That's very specific.
It's very specific, and but it is something that a line two might really need
Mm.
when they want it. So, but so the line two needs to reassess itself, needs to go back and be with themselves, alone, and
Mm.
no pressure from other people.
Wow.
Oh, I still have to do this or have to do that. And line two will have difficulties with that.
Yeah.
So move is gentle, but it is also flowing.
Hmm.
Circulation, that is line three. And line three, of course, can experiment, can delve deep in a sport, for example, and then discover that they are not good at it, but no worries, they go on and discover something else. So that is it. But this is all about getting your oxygen pumped through the veins, through your
Hmm.
body, and it is also about endurance. So
Hmm.
somebody with a line three might not want to do endurance training, but it's actually what they need. They need to go to the limit.
Mm. Very interesting. Okay.
And there's endurance sports, of course, marathon, triathlon, whatever. Line four is breathing and communication. And of course, we communicate through the breath, right? So um, you need the unrestricted breathing and flowing exchange between all body areas, and it includes communicating when you are exercising.
Hmm.
So in team activities, in sports, and or walking together,
Hmm.
or doing any team sport where you need to communicate.
Hmm.
So it is because the breath is not just what goes out, but it is also what goes in.
Hmm.
Right. So personally, I would warn people when you're in line four and you have this to really take care what you speak.
Mm. Wow. Okay.
Right? Because you're going to ingest it as well.
Wow. Okay. So whatever you speak while you're moving, got to be watching what you're saying, minding your words.
Right. It's a line four. Of course, it goes for us as well, but it is especially a line four. So if
Mm.
you're going sitting breathing and you do breathing exercises or a breath of fire, but you're really angry, so that will create a lot of fire internally.
Totally. Absolutely. Okay. Let's see what else here.
Then
Um,
line five It's the voice and interaction. So this is also also about talking and listening. So it's the sound from the inside and the outside in. So it is creating sounds, your own sounds, but it is also listening to other people's sounds.
Okay.
So and expressing it. The example is singing in the shower or whatever, and talking. Talking in your that people can see it actually, but you're alone and you're talking to yourself. Right, that is not an old age problem, but it's also somebody probably with a line 5 somewhere in the
Cool.
sun.
Okay. And then finally,
Line
line
6,
6.
of course. So that is more the energetics. Then line 6, you've arrived at the top and you have accumulated maybe a lot of energetic, yeah, feelings and accumulated stuff from other people, because the line 6 is more transparent. So
Mm,
it comes more in, but you have to have the ability to have it move out as well.
mm,
Right? So that is where chakra cleaning, for example, but especially yoga, tai chi, kung fu could actually be a good one, because it's also rooted in energetics. Walking barefoot, hot cold showers, shakti mat.
oh, I got one of those over there. I
Yes.
love it.
So, and then the rebalancing or the quantum energy healing. So anything that has to do with the subtle energies
Mhm.
that basically nobody can see, that would be perfect for line 6 to get your energy flowing again.
Wow. This is fascinating. Like this is like um it's so simple.
Yes,
It's so simple. And
yes,
you know, well, as we said earlier, Lee and I are running a workshop on this. Last one I did with Allison was huge. It was about your
yes.
wealth, and it was about the two channels in the body that will get your wealth activated. But this one also deals a little bit with the sun line too. So this is now moving into health, and this is now seeing where health sits in your human design chart, which honestly it's been done only very poorly in the past with the PHS. So this is super cool stuff. Is there anything else that you're going to be covering? Or there must be more to it than just this, too, right?
Right. So it's the five element. It's how the five elements work and how you really can look at all the hexagrams or your body graph in a yin and yang in a yin yang understanding.
Hmm.
But you can already start with with the lines, with how the energy flows, or how you get your clarity going, because basically you can look at all your gates now, that and look at from the lens of, okay, I'm in line 1, so if and it doesn't matter if the gate has a line 1, right? Because that's your constitution. Your line 1 goes to interpret also all the gates in a
Mm.
sense, well, what can I do to get the energy flowing, to get more clarity in there.
Hmm. Wow. So this workshop that Lee and I are putting together, it's 2 days. Day one, she's going to be sharing with you this 5 element approach to health from your human design body graph. In day
Mm-hmm.
two, we've learned from the mistakes of not giving enough time for readings. So day two is just pure readings. So you get personal
Right.
readings. It's pay what you want. There's replays available if you can't make it live, but if you make it live, you most likely get a reading, especially because we're designating an entire day for that. So this is a really great chance for you to really understand how your body wants to be treated, what's going to be the best thing for your decision making and your well-being according to the 5 elements and according to human design. This hasn't been done before, folks. So the link to that is in the description below. Really hope that I see a lot of you out there for that, because the stuff that we've been covering in our workshop series on human design and astrology and quantum rebalancing is stuff that's not being shown anywhere else. Like we're developing and we're pioneering in new directions. And that's why like I brought Lee on this show is because, well, first of all, I really respect her when it comes to human design. But secondly, is that she's pioneering in a direction that is absolutely needed at this time. It's essential. And frankly, there's so much in human design that is becoming obsolete. You know, Ra even
Yes.
said the bodygraph is obsolete in 2027. I'm pretty sure there's still going to be people using human design afterwards for whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. I guess one question that comes up a lot is, is this for tropical or is this for true sidereal? What you're talking about?
It is the mechanics is applicable to any calculation system.
There you go. Okay. So whatever one you're working with, folks. For me, I think my true sidereal makes more sense
Hmm.
for the type of exercise that makes my body happy. That's just me, though. You might be
I
different.
actually would say that I would take for my body, I would take my true sidereal because
Hmm.
it makes no sense, right? And but for say for a more how do you say it? Yeah, it's difficult to say. I don't have the right word for it, but it is from a perspective of how how I was 2,000 years ago. Can I say that?
How you were
No,
2,000 years
no,
ago?
from a basic form idea, right? From the basic soul in a vehicle. So that it's just my soul is timeless, but the vehicle is limited,
Hmm.
right? And that's the bodygraph. So I would say it was a better match 2,000 years ago. I thought so. I probably did it than it is now. So I really want to know what is how were the planets and the stars aligned on the moment I was born,
Hmm.
because that is my cosmic song
Right. Right. I see what you mean by 2,000 years ago because that's the tropical zodiac. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Not,
in a way,
yeah.
right? So, but I should have. Okay, maybe time is time. Maybe I'm living that life now in another. Yeah, right. And it's so and also in the sort of oversoul idea. I don't know. But for me it makes more sense to because I'm working with a vehicle that is now that
Mhm.
I was born in 1957, so I want to have that perfect
Yeah.
alignment.
And I think everybody should learn to recalculate their I-Namshas, basically. I think it's like one of those things we should start teaching in school so that we don't get trapped in an identity from 2,300 years ago, which is when the tropical zodiac's I-Namsha was true. Interestingly enough, what happened 2,300 years ago? We got Buddha, we got Krishna, we got these teachers that came to the earth. But before then, humanity was at a very challenging point in time. So it's
Yes,
interesting that, as sort of the tropical zodiac tends to kind of superimpose us back into a point in history before the great avatars showed up on this planet to liberate humans.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure if Ra ever got got the instruction to use tropical. I can't imagine that the voice actually knew that calculation. It was the calculation that was available at the time, and it was the calculation of the astrologers that he met when he started out. So I don't know how many did sidereal at that time. Was it
Yeah.
around, or was it just a Vedic?
My understanding is back then sidereal was mostly just Vedic. That was before, like it was later in the 90s when people started to
Mm-hmm.
experiment with Western-based sidereal systems. And now they're becoming even more popular because tropical, again, it superimposes us back into an older version of ourselves or a
Yes,
version of ourselves that I believe is controllable. And so
right.
that's the thing. And
Yes,
everybody, the other thing too is when you start looking at it, it's like, how come the global consciousness cycles use sidereal and then the body graph uses tropical? And people intellectualizing this sort of like crazy thing. It tends to get very complicated. And some of the purists, they all seem to live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, by the way. These purists, I think they all are like neighbors.
That it is because
We're
there
not going to name names,
sign was there. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
But
but but they have all these complex theories, and like, they love just, tooting each other's horns basically on how like smart they are because they can get into these complex levels. But life
yeah.
isn't meant to be that complex, especially for ordinary people. It's just like, do I do yoga or do I go for a walk? What's going on here?
But I think even Richard Rudd says something. He has something about the 7 years, a book, and he starts with gate. And he starts the whole process of 7 years with gate 3 in Aries.
Okay.
So that is also completely off because normally you start with gate 41.
Mm.
So I don't know what it is. So he is also doing something different, but
Interesting.
he's not using any calculator. He's only
No.
I don't know what he's
Mm.
using.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
anyway,
this has been quite an interesting heretical
yes,
podcast episode.
like five.
And hope to see you in the workshop. And also, hope you learned something today to make your life easier and to bring your exploration of the human design system back in alignment with nature. So, thank you for coming on the show. And yeah, we'll be in touch and hopefully see you guys at the workshop. Take care.
See you there.